For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eva. I am part of 356 Labs, and what I like to say is that I do a little bit of everything. For those of you who have worked or who are currently working at an agency, probably you know what that means. But most importantly, my role is related to the fact that I am writing and I'm helping our clients deliver their message in the best possible way. Also, I am responsible to make sure that every project that leads to our clients is done to the very, very high expected level. Anyway, as I always say, during those webinars, that's not going to be the focus and that's not going to be the main point. If you are interested in learning more about us or you have any questions, feel free to let me know after this webinar. Just write on the 356 Labs profile. We have a profile on every social media network. Let's dive into what we are here for today. So today we are going to talk about Morph, because the reason why I decided to do this webinar is many people that are joining usually our events, webinars, or that have seen us during trainings or workshops, they know that we are using Morph a lot, and we are kind of exploring every possible opportunity to make our clients or our own presentations as better as possible, as much visual and as dynamic as possible. Now, the thing is that Morph, in terms of functionality, is available since, I think, 2016. So if you think about it, that's 4 years ago. And at the same time, every time when I am with a client, there are people who have the functionality but have never used it, and they're always like, well, listen, PowerPoint is a super stupid tool. It cannot do anything. It takes too much time to do animations. It's just too complex, etc., etc. Well, what Microsoft did actually in 2016 was that by launching this new transition, it made it so much easier for people to animate and move around things in their slides that I would say it's a pity that not that many people are using that opportunity and not that many people are delivering more visual and more dynamic presentations. So before we dive into the examples, because as it was in the description, today we're going to look at some examples. Maybe some of you that are currently working on presentations, you can take some ideas from that. I want us to first walk through, let's say, the basics. So what is Morph? Morph is a transition that you will find in the transitions menu, obviously, which now is placed next to fade. One quick note here. If you're using PowerPoint 2016, you might have Morph, but it's not sure, because Morph was available from some, as they call them, builds onwards. So some of the builds might not have it. And in terms of the other versions where PowerPoint, where Morph is available, that's with the Office 365 subscription, which 3 days ago, I think it was called Microsoft 365 subscription, and PowerPoint 2019. So you will see it in the transitions menu here. So what does Morph do? Let me show you. Instead of explaining, let me show you, and we will analyze how that works. So we have these just very simple 5 shapes. Let's see what happens. So they moved, but they moved in a very, very interesting way compared to what we usually see. And it looks almost like an animated even movie. So the way Morph works is that it uses repeatable objects, which means that if we take 2 slides, there are objects that are repeating. So by having repeatable objects, Morph understands their new positions and it animates them, and it creates that very nice flow between the slides. The way that this actually works, and if we kind of analyze it, let's just have a brief look. So the first slide, we had one circle with 3 icons that are around it. On the next slide, we have those same icons, but they seem to be slightly bigger and their order was changed. Apart from that though, if you see here, there is a circle. So where did that circle go? The cool thing about Morph and what you can do is that you can use that whole gray space area here that you have around your slides. So if we go to this slide, let me show you actually where that big circle went. Do you see it? So how is that slide done? As I said, Morph is working with repeatable objects. That's very important for you to know because it means that we need to work with the same slide, basically to work with duplicated versions of that slide so that the objects remain the same. So if we have this very, very simple example, what happened here was the following. We literally just said duplicate slide. You see that button when you click it with the right mouse, we say duplicate slide. Then we just took that circle and we kind of moved it away from the slide. You do that by holding Control and Shift, and you're just enlarging the circle until it goes out of the slide. And then what we did here was we just arranged those icons. I will just arrange them in a very like random way at the moment, but since I like things to be organized, I will just align them here. I will use the arrange buttons, like very quickly align them. If you want, you can add text, you can add anything else that you think would be needed for this slide. I will just add one, let's say text here, text example, and I will go to transitions and I will choose Morph. So do you see what happens? It's slightly different one, but you see the point, right? You see how it works. So that was the initial stage. That's how we started. Here is how that could look. So essentially, if you have, let's say, 5 points or something that you want to cover during your presentation and you want to go deeper into each point, you can do it in that manner so that you don't have to have all of the text here at the same time. Well, that's cool. I mean, Morph works with objects. It works with repeatable objects, and it's a cool thing to know, but let's see what more it can do. So another example, let's just take a look at this one. So that's just the very, very simple way and explanation of the expression word. So it's the act of saying what you think of or showing how you feel using words or actions. The look on someone's face showing what they feel or think. Now, take a look at what will happen to this slide. Do you see how the words moved? That's another option of Morph. Apart from having it as a transition here, there is also one more button that we need to pay a little bit attention to, and it's here. It's called Effect Options. You can see it here on the right side. It's this one. So when you click on Effect Options, apart from objects, there is one option that's called Words. So when you're using that effect, it actually moves objects and individual words. But it works only when the capitalization is the same. So what we've done here is the following. We literally just duplicated that slide. I'm duplicating the slide, and I am changing the order of the sentences. So I'm just cutting this one and I'm pasting it here before the second sentence. I'm applying a little bit of kind of corrections, and then I'm clicking Morph. But if I click Morph only, see what happens? That was the initial state. That's how it was. So I did that. I duplicated the slide. I changed the order of the sentences, and see what happened. It didn't move. So in order for it to move, I have to go to Effect Options, and I have to specifically say that I want it to recognize words. So I click on Words, and you see that it is working well. Yeah, it's working. So that's another thing. The third thing that Morph can do is this one. So we have just one simple word, Morph transition, and then see what happens. Allow us to surprise you. That's, by the way, a slide from a presentation that we did 4 years ago, exactly when Morph came out. So I love that sentence because it has kind of sentimental even meaning for me. But that's another option of that effect. So it can work not only with words, but with characters, because the words consist of characters. So here, what happened is that it transformed one word into another. I will show it again. So the last one is, we have just one simple sentence on the slide. We move to the next one, and you see how the words are kind of moving among each other. You might be getting a little bit of delay because of the internet and the fact that it's online, but you should be able to see kind of the effect. So it moves from morph transition, it becomes allow us to surprise you. The way we've done it is the following. We just duplicated that slide, morph transition. We kept that same text box. To the previous question, yes, morph recognizes text. So we kept that same text box and we wrote our new text. Allow us to surprise you. This one is with small letter. We even changed the background. So Morph recognizes the background. We changed the color of the background. I'm just giving it format background, and I will change it to this PowerPoint red, if we can say it. And I will click effect options. I will say first Morph. I will click on effect options and I will choose characters. And it immediately recognizes that this is the same text box, the one that we had here where it says morph transition. It is the same text box, but the text inside of it is changed. And that's why it's moving the characters in this really, really nice way. So we've used it several times. To be honest, make sure that maybe just one disclaimer that is good to know and good to have in mind while I'm showing you all this is that you will see, especially during the examples, I'm explaining what are we trying to show with this slide and why the story that is behind is closely linked to this particular transition. So it's not something that you should be doing just because it's fun, because we've seen it and at the end the result is not fun, it's not cool. So make sure that you have that in mind when we are looking at the examples now. As Steve Jobs liked to say, and I think that's that's something that everyone who has heard him speak has heard, there is one more thing. Now, I want you to see this example. So we said that Morph is working with repeatable objects. What it not recently, but maybe a year ago, it started doing is that now it can transform shapes. So see what I mean here. We have this very basic square on the slide. Look what happens. So you see how it's transforming itself not into a square, but into a circle. It can be quite cool, right? So let's try and see what happened there though. We said that it's working with repeatable objects. Now, for the sake of it, and just so that it's a little bit clearer, because this is slightly difficult slightly more difficult than the others, I will just create one more slide. I will just create one blank slide and I will draw one very simple rectangle. Yep, I will leave out this slide number and I will change the color because I don't like that green. So I have just very standard yellow rectangle, right? And I want this rectangle to transform into a circle. What do I do? Like, we start with the standard way. I copy that slide, I get to duplicate, and then when I'm here on the next slide, on the second slide, what I do is that I mark the shape, I go to shape format, I go to edit shape, and I change that shape basically to circle or whatever shape you like. So I will change it to a circle. Right? It's super simple. I have one object, I duplicated the slide, just changed the kind of the shape. The object is the same, right? So let's see what happens. I click to the second slide, I go to the transition, I choose morph, and let's see how that one works. So that's the first slide. That's the first object that we have. Let's go to the next one. Why is it not working? Right? These are the same object. As you saw me, I duplicated that slide. So these are the same objects essentially, but for some reason, it's not recognizing that. Let me tell you one thing that you would like to know if you plan to use Morph often. There is one, I would say that it's even hidden functionality because many people don't know about it. Those of you who have been and who have who have passed through the PowerPoint tips and tricks course, which is, by the way, now free. You can take it with the home office promo code. You will learn more about the selection pane. So what is selection pane? Selection pane allows us to see a list of objects that we have on the slides. So in our case, selection pane shows me that I have a rectangle 2 on this slide. Let's see what it will show me to the next one. So I have oval 2. So the thing here and the magic trick here is that we need to make sure that the names of the objects that we want to morph are the same. I will repeat it again. The names of the objects that we see in selection pane are the same on both slides. Let's try it. Let me do that one. So I will call this one, let's say, object. I will call this one, again, object. You can rename the object without a problem in selection pane. Just click on the object and you will be able to edit the name. So the names of the objects are the same. I have applied the morph transition on the second slide. Let's see what will happen. So we have a rectangle here, but it's still not working. Why? There is something new in Morph, and they call it bang bang morph, because what needs to happen here is for the morph to recognize that you want to transform these two objects. You need to add 2 exclamation marks in front of the names of those 2 objects. So what I will do now is simply add 2 exclamation marks in front of object, and I will do that for the second slide as well. So let's see now. We've done another thing on top of everything. So we have the rectangle, and now it's working. And that's because simply Morph is recognizing that you want to transform these 2 objects. Okay, let's go into the examples then. I will start with I would say the easiest one first. That's a presentation that you might have seen or you might have not seen, but I have chosen just very few slides from it. It's for a company called Detail Online. They do really, really cool stuff, but mostly, I will just say with one word what they do. They track all products that are in the online space and whether or not they are presented in the same way by different, let's say, vendors. So I have chosen just a few slides. I will play them for you just so that you can see what kind of presentations we've done for them. It's a presentation that is delivered live in front of a live audience. And in their case, it was for salespeople. So there are some statistics here. All user searches and what they're for. That's just some data that we have here. Then we have some sort of a dashboard, if we can call it, and how it goes into more details. Then we have a very important slide, which is that the importance of e-commerce audits is skyrocketing. And we have very nice way to show 7 things. These 7 questions that the solution is actually answering for its clients. Yep. Let's see. I hope it's not lagging too much. And here we say that they are Google, but no, they are not Google. So you see some slides here. Some of them I won't lie to you. Some of them are a bit more complex to make. But for those that are like very simple, for example, even like the last one, even though it may look like very hard to make slide, that's not the case. That's definitely not the case. What we've done here is, again, I will even show it to you with that presentation. So we have that slide where we say, hey, they tell us that we are Google, but the story is that no, we are not Google. We are not Google at all. Now, can we analyze just for a second that slide, those 2 slides, just for a second? So you see that slide at first, and then notice the movement around it. Do you see what happens on the next one? So essentially what we have is that we have the Google logo here, and we have the Google logo in another color on the next slide. We have changed the background, and all these little exclamation marks and question marks, they disappeared except for one. So, and the background changed. So essentially what we did was that we duplicated that slide because we wanted to create that kind of effect that no, detail is not Google. And that was a very important point to make. And what we did was that in order to make those exclamation marks and question marks disappear from that slide in such a way, we just moved them to the left, we moved them upwards, we moved them downwards. Basically, you can choose the way that you like them to move. So you can be as creative as you wish. We made the background in that really nice gradient, which it probably won't take now, but let's see. It should be that one towards, I think it was this one, or maybe something like this. Anyway, that's not super important. I will copy the colors from here. Okay, so we have that color, and then here we have that color. Okay, great. Then the Google logo, what happened there? So when I mark that logo, you see that here, instead of picture format, which was the standard format that was appearing when you have a PNG, for example, file, we have graphics format. Just a very short note here, Office 365 already supports SVG, or scalable vector graphics objects, which is fantastic, because what I can do now is literally change the color of that logo with just one click away. I don't need to send that to designers. They don't need to run it through Photoshop. That already works in PowerPoint. So it's very cool. It works in PowerPoint 2019 as well. So we have that Google logo. We have text box that we have on the new slide. We know we are not. And of course, I will make the text bigger, maybe a little bit more bolder. I will make it white. And this is the exclamation mark that I would like to be here, because I would like to make this very bold point. Basically, I do that, and then from the graphics format menu, again, I just change the outline to white, and I apply the morph transition. So do you see what happened? So that's the original one, and I just moved all those objects, added a new one, changed the background, and we have that pretty much the same result. Of course, I'm not a designer, so I'm sure that our designers even are probably going to have something that they can do absolutely better. I mean, that's for 100% sure, but just for you to see how easy it is for some things. Like, for example, if you remember what I showed you about that bang bang morph, now if you remember those cards here, if we open the selection pane, you will see how many objects there are and how they are. All of them have like different names. They have those exclamation marks at the front. I realized that that takes time, and I realized that you are not designers. I'm also not a designer in that sense, like our designers do. And just for you to know that you can work with small amount and small number of objects that can really leverage your presentation and can make it much more visual and much more dynamic. So that's example number one. That was, I would say, an easier one. Let's go to example number two. Example number two is a very interesting presentation. Unfortunately, it's highly confidential because we did it for Deloitte at the beginning of the year. I've hidden all of the information there, so I've just left a few things because we are very close to our clients and they do cool stuff. So I've just left 3 things that I like about the person. Now, take a look at what happens here. Pay attention to those very small things that are kind of going into that circle. Do you see those? These are some visuals that we got from Deloitte. These are like, you might see them in their website, though some of them we recreated ourselves. But do you see that very small movement? I will play it again just so that you can see how that one looks. They're moving very slowly to the center. The idea of that transition here was that we wanted to have, because that's presented on a big screen, like it's big. And what we wanted to do is when the presenter comes on the stage, we wanted him to present themselves and to kind of do their intro and have that slide as a background, because it creates a very, it leaves you expecting something because you still don't know what it is. It's just like very subtle. The next slides, I will just walk through them just so that you can see kind of the movements and what happens during that presentation. So we have 44% of something, but it's a very important number, so it has to be big. We have again 50% something, again big number, it's important, so it needs to be big. Then we have we have some celebration there going on. There are some other animations. Charts. Yep, other charts, etc. So these are like, for that, by the way, this very simple movement here around blurring the lines is a favorite of mine, because if you think about it, that's extremely easy. Like what we did there was, again, just duplicated that slide. Like we said, duplicate slide. We made that object larger. We took that line slightly lower. And if you have a point that you really want to emphasize on, even if it's one point on that slide, you can do that with that like very subtle movement. Is that arrow also morph? Yeah. So the thing here is that many things are morph. A lot of things are morphing with each other or against each other. So if we kind of very quickly analyze what happens here, is that you will see a lot of objects on the slides. Now, when I come here, if we analyze, let's say, slides 4 and 5, what you will see here is we have a percentage. But after that slide, what happens is that we have some fireworks coming from the middle of the number, and we have a trophy, which comes from the bottom. So let's see what we have on this slide. As I told you, in Morph, see how many objects there are. It's like a lot of objects. But with Morph, what happens is that it works with repeatable objects. So the next slide, how it was done, it was basically, it had all the objects that were here, it had them prepared on the previous slide. So we have them preparing and ready to go so that this slide can work. Now, it's a little bit harder to kind of make it for a short period of time, but what happens here is that because of the layers that we see in the selection pane, many of those fireworks, I will just mark them here. All those fireworks are actually behind other things. So what you can do when you're trying Morph next time is to see how much actually that can work with you and with your slides if you have objects that are hidden behind other objects on the previous slide. Okay, so I assume that you might be having some questions here. I do realize that some of these transitions are fairly complicated. And I realize also the fact that some of you might not have the whole day to play with transitions. That's something that we do and that I would advise you to do only for like really, really important presentations that you have. That's not for everyday presentation that you have with your team or just with a friend even. You can use though all of those small things around Morph and how they work. So let me go into the very, very serious example. So the last example is for a company. It's something that we did again this year. It's something new. The company is called Abraxa. And what we have here are several custom built things for that presentation. It goes through a story. And it's a very, very nice story for the British rowing team during the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000. So we have the boats and how they're moving. Then we have a medal, because what happens is that the British rowing team won after, I think, 100 years without winning any race like that, of that scale. Then we have those waves, which are custom made. So that's not something that I can even build when I'm not a designer. I cannot do that. But just so that you can see what is possible with Morph. I mean, these are very visual-like, very dynamic like movements that you can create with that. And when people say that PowerPoint is a stupid program, when I show them that, they're like, okay, you've done that through After Effects. Well, no, it's actually PowerPoint. So here are some different vessels. We have some boats afterwards where the story goes. We have the so-called visionary boats and how they move through digital transformation, because the wave here represents digital transformation. Then we have the boat moving, and it moves up until the time the logo comes out. So for example, here, if we very briefly analyze what happens, is that we have many objects on the slide. I just would like you to see how many of those objects do we have on that slide. I'm scrolling and I cannot really reach the bottom. So in that case, that's a very, very specific case. We have every single person here being drawn specifically for that deck. And a lot of things are moving, a lot of things are changing. So a lot of bang morphs and different movement and animations. Again, that's not something that's being done by a person who is not a designer who does not know the software. But again, I'm showing it because many people are saying that you cannot do anything with PowerPoint, just so that you can see Morph can do amazing stuff. Those very simple things that I showed you are part of something much bigger. And that's something that you're going to hear about a little bit later, but it's something that we're doing especially for you, so that you can work with Morph in a very easier way, in a more easier way, and so that you can, let's say, create more dynamic and vibrant slides with our help. So my email is eva@356labs.com. I wrote it in the chat box. I'm going to write it again, just so that you have it. Any questions that also come up later on, feel free to send me an email, or if anything around 356 Labs or anything that you want to learn more about the company, just let me know through email or via any social media platform out there. Right now, as I mentioned, and that's something that I really want you guys to have a look if you haven't done so yet. If you go to academy.356labs.com, up until the 13th of April, we are offering our, I would say, exploding PowerPoint course, which is our bestseller for many, many years. We are offering that one for free because of the whole situation, because we really believe that now is the time for you guys to sit down and have, I see some of you have completed it. Awesome. I really think that now is the time to kind of sit down and even think about how you can upskill yourself and what more you can do to make make yourself a better presenter. So go ahead. There is a promo code called Home Office. You can use it, and the course will be for free. You will have access until the end of time, I can say. So we're currently thinking of recording other videos, which you will also have access to afterwards. So go ahead, use it, use the time, and I definitely believe, and I'm 100% sure it will change your life in the longer term. All of you that have any questions or anything that comes up afterwards, again, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm replying to everyone. And we will make sure that we keep you posted around those materials that we are currently developing around Morph, which I'm sure will make you a much better designer in PowerPoint. Before we kind of wrap it up, maybe just one very, very quick disclaimer. The first one, I already told it about the fact that you need to make sure that this transition brings and adds value to your message. So don't overuse it. We've seen people overuse it. It's not cool. The result is not great, even though the transition is cool. The end result is definitely not great. The second disclaimer is the following. Speaking of online presentations, and given the fact that now every presentation moves online pretty much, be careful how you use Morph, because some of the effects that I showed you now that are really cool are not really working online. So I'm not saying not to use it, but just be mindful of the way you use it, because the people on the other side might not see it as clearly as you see it on your PC. So just be very careful with that. Thank you so much for spending those almost 1 hour with me. It was a real pleasure for me to be here and to see so many new people today. I'm really excited. I hope I got you excited about Morph. I really want you to now go ahead and try it with your new presentations or presentations that you've already built, because I'm sure it will change the way people see them. Thank you so much, guys. We're closing it for now. Again, if anyone has anything additional and wants to add anything additional, just let me know via email or via social media. I'll be perfectly happy to respond to that. Thank you so much.